So the big news around here yesterday is that Kayshon Boutte is returning. And I thought when it came out, I really thought it was a gaffe. I thought it was a prank.
I thought it was a joke, too.
I thought it was a prank. I really did. I thought that, I had kind of heard this over the last couple of days that he was talking about it. But then I thought the play he made against Georgia, I really thought to myself kind of like, well, that's exactly what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, if you can still do that and then you do it against that defense, you've kind of answered all of the questions that pro scouts would have about you, I would imagine, going to the next level. Like, where's he been all season? Why are his numbers like there? You can ask, but then like, whoa, he can still do that? Okay.
Coach,
all right.
when he was, there were people still trying to tackle him, and the announcer was like, he might be gone.
Yeah.
I said, you don't know who K
Like,
is.
he hit
Gone.
That, he hit that gear.
Coach, he didn't get touched.
No.
He didn't get
touched. But there was still people trying to tackle him, like converge on him, and the announcer's like, he might be gone.
He high-stepped his way into it. Was
beautiful.
Jordy, if I would have, after that play, after that score, if I would have given you odds of Kayshon plays and either Kayshon sits out the bowl game or comes back to LSU, which one would you
Oh, I would have definitely had him sitting out.
I thought that he was done.
I thought he was a first-round lock. Like, when I saw that play, I was like, well, he just locked up his first-round status. By the way, real quick, on the speaking of playoff and opt-outs, big news, Smith and Jigba, or Njigba Smith, big wide receiver for Ohio State, who I thought was going to be a real game changer for them against Georgia, opted out yesterday. That was surprising to me. But Kayshon coming back for LSU is enormous news. And I think the biggest winner in this, besides, the wide receiver room and the quarterbacks, is Brian Kelly, is the message he can now send, sell, and internally has to feel like what he is doing is really working by what just happened yesterday in the announcement that Kayshon made. Rewind with me if you don't mind. Let's go about a year ago, really, to this time period. If you remember, Kayshon was in a headspace in a place where people were wondering whether or not he was going to be playing for Alabama next season. Right? Like that was the storyline of where we were with Kayshon. Like he was leaving. He was going to Bama. Bryce Young was texting with him. They were kind of like out there flirting in public. It was known. He wasn't denying it. It was what was happening with Kayshon, LSU, transfer portal stuff, and where he was a year ago. Skip ahead a couple of weeks, Brian Kelly is introduced to the media. He's finding his footing as
literally
the new
off
LSU.
the plane.
Yeah, and he's finding, he's kind of getting his bearings to him in South Louisiana and LSU. And one of the first times he meets with the media, he calls out Kayshon, which at the time I remember saying, that's a ballsy move, right? That's saying kind of like, hey, look, I'm drawing the line right here. And I'm saying, look, from this day on, this is how we're running it. And I don't care if you're Kayshon or I don't care if you're a walk-on. People are going to be held accountable. His quote about Kayshon during that time period was like, I don't ever see him.
Don't even know his name.
Yeah, I don't even know his name. It was like, whoa. Like you're taking a guy that has been on the ropes and thinking about leaving and, is your best player and publicly that's your stance on him. I can't imagine what the private conversations, if any, had been had up to that point. If you would have told any of us at that moment in that time period that fast forward a year and Kayshon's going to announce that he's coming back for his senior season to LSU, I don't know what the odds would have been, but you could be jet set on some cool island right now, kicked up, because it would have been some really good odds on just whether or not that would happen. And the fact that within that year, because it's taken less than a year, you could see it taking shape really in fall camp, the relationship between Brian Kelly and Kayshon Boutte changing. I'll never forget, I went out, left the show one morning in July, went straight over to LSU's camp at 9 a.m. because Little Jay was over there, a part of 1,600 campers. that were there at LSU's football camp under Brian Kelly. They got kids running around on the practice field like ants. It looks like they kicked over ant piles. They got so many kids running around out
Little
there.
Jay's out there tweeting.
Kayshon is walking around with a towel over his head and comes and not seeks me out. We're just kind of walking in the same direction. And you could tell, wants to tell me something, right? And as he's getting close to me, he's like, I'm coming back. I'm back. No, is what he's saying. I'm back. I'm back. And I'm like, I know, man. What you mean? He's like, no, I'm at 100%.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm
ready to play. Yeah, he's like, I'm ready to play. I'm 100%. And then remember the news started
coming out, yeah,
trickling out. Like, hey, Kayshon's a player. And then the picture of him and Brian Kelly at the camp in the sun, where they're kind of like goofing around. You know what I mean? They're like standing there and they got arm in arm, and you're like, damn. I mean, in a short time period of the message being, I don't know who he is, to holding him around his neck, and Kayshon telling everybody who will listen at this camp that I'm a playmaker again. I'm ready to be back. I'm at 100%. It's like, man, this is going to work out for this year. Like, he's going to blow up. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to get him involved. He's going to be his one of his centerpieces on offense, and Kayshon's going to the league. And for that announcement to come out yesterday, I think it tells the message of what Brian Kelly has built at LSU in a very short time period, and the effect that it's had on, everybody, like all of us, everybody that's talking about it out in the community and out in public, to the media members that are covering it and talking about it. But inside the locker room, there's no better example that you could provide to anyone on the impact that Brian Kelly has had, other than, I would lead off the conversation with, Kayshon Boutte's coming back. I mean, how's Brian Kelly fitting in? I mean, the more you listen to some of these national shows, the more they still kind of try to force the narrative of, is he a good fit? Do they like him down there? Is he going to fit in the South, where it's like, bro, I mean, catch up. Get over the accent stuff. Stop talking about the family stuff and stop talking about the fit. That stuff's been decided a long time ago. He fits in perfectly. And if you want to know if he fits in the locker room with the team and the program, you need an example. Kayshon Boutte's coming back would be my lead bullet point. That's it. Because if you want to see the evolution of Brian Kelly and the effect that he's had on the program, look no further than the public play out of him and his All-American. I mean, a year ago now, he's telling you, I don't know his name. I don't see him. That's when Kayshon came and sat right here a couple of weeks later, and we were all saying, he looks overweight. He doesn't look checked in. He doesn't look dialed in. That's what he said. I wanted to wear number 7. The deal had been done with Gordon. He was coming back, but you wondered, he had just had a second surgery. He wasn't playing ball. He wasn't working out. He wasn't training. He wasn't in it, right? He had gotten paid. He was who he was. He had the status. He was the best freshman wide receiver in America 3 years ago. He was an All-American last season. At that time in his life, he was that dude.
Everything's going to plan.
Right? And now to see that he's coming back for a senior season, I just think it's huge news, obviously, for the LSU offense. It's huge news for the quarterback room. It's huge news for Coach Hankton and the wide receivers. But I thought, outside of the obvious winners, the biggest winner of the day was Brian Kelly, because of the impact and the effect that he has had on the program in a very short time period. And a great example of that would be Kayshon Boutte returning to school for his senior season. A huge, huge win for LSU yesterday. There's not a wide receiver recruit on the board right now. And Kyle Caskey said this in a group text message last night that I thought was a very solid take. And Caskey will be here at 8:30 this morning breaking it all down with Caskey's Clicker, each week brought to you by Citizens Bank and Trust. But he mentioned it, and I agree with him. There is not a recruit on the board. Jaylen Brown, Shelton Sampson Jr., all of them.
There's not a kid in the portal.
Not a kid out there in college football that's as talented and makes a bigger impact on the wide receiver room than Kayshon Boutte coming back. I mean,
he needs 52 catches to break the all-time catches.
Who has it?
Wendell Davis.
Wow.
He had 183. He'll need like 1,300 some yards to break the yards record. But I mean, if he gets 1,000 next year, he'll be third on the list.
Because this year didn't go the way he thought it would.
No
right?
way.
I feel like it was just a bunch of things coming together at once. That was just a lot for everybody, and LSU found its footing. And the reason I'm saying that is because this announcement, LSU needed some good news in a little bit, like just in kind of some fashion. Like you lose 2 straight, you get dunked on by Georgia, who wants to hang 50 on you for just out of spite, and then like which way are we looking? We're playing Purdue in a bowl game, and then you turn up and you look Monday night and Kayshon says, "I'm coming back, BK takeover," and you're just like, okay,
wow,
we just needed one thing. You know, if you're an LSU fan, you just needed one positive to find. Because a lot of people, I mean, you're talking about quarterback controversy already. Like, you can't leave fans alone for this long, so they needed some good news. And Kayshon coming back is unbelievable news for LSU fan base because, I mean, they were talking to it's Garrett Nussmeier, Jaden Daniels, Walker Howard, where's Jack Besh going? And now it's, wait, is everybody coming back? Like, is this going to be the first domino for them trying to run it back? Because who's the first person to comment on Kayshon's post? Mekhi Gardner, a guy that we all had lockstep into the draft. And now he's like, let's run it back, get a ring. And, Coach, if you can get that kind of buy-in right now, it's the perfect time to get good news if you're an LSU fan. And if Kayshon's the guy that's going to step up, and this shows maturity to me in my mind, like of him being able to say, look, I could go to the draft. I could go show out at Pro Day. I could go show out at the Combine. But instead, he's taking a step back and realizing, wait, I have unfinished business here. We have a chance to do something extremely special at LSU. And if I can be the one to be the guy to say, hey, we're not going in early. Because he came here on this show and said, it's 3 years. He said he was leaving.
Yeah.
And instead, he walks it back, and BK gets him to come back. And let's see if Jaquelin Roy wants to come back. Mekhi Gardner wants to come back. Greg Brooks wants to come back. Like, this could be the first domino in a massive windfall for LSU football.
That's a good point. If you remember back to his interview here, the soundbite that really everybody jumped on wasn't the one of him claiming that he wanted to wear number 7. It was a message that he had to his recruiting class of guys like Mason Smith and no, he was the year before that.
Mason Smith was
year after him. Yeah. Year after him. It was like Jaquelin Roy, B.J. Ojulari.
He was pitching 3 years.
He was pitching very much like, hey, we got to get here, get in, and get out. But that was what everybody, he was kind of like deemed as like a selfish guy after that. You know, like he's just worried about what he's going to do, what he's going to get. And I think, you know, again, you can see all these examples of just in the last year of maturing, you know, and a new regime, a new message, a new, you know, messenger in Brian Kelly and the way that it's impacted Kayshon. I think that when it's all said and done and Kayshon coming back and, you know, look, we had the head coach from Westgate come on over the, you know, before the season started. And he said Kayshon's the best player that's ever come out of that community. And that's a community that's put out guys like Jared Mitchell, like Mark Roman. Like they put out pros, right, at everywhere. And I know that I don't want to get into names because I'll leave 100 out. But he says that Kayshon is the best to come out of that community. When you talk to people in South Acadiana and that part of the state, they say Kayshon has been the most dominant player on every field he's been on since he's been 5, 6, 7 years old, right? I saw him play at Westgate. They compared him to Jamar Chase in high school, the type of high school player he was. He was always open. Anytime you threw it to him, he'd catch it. Anytime he was one-on-one, he was going to beat him. He was probably going to beat 2-on-1. And he would score when it just looked like there was no chance for him to get out of the pack. He'd come sprinting out of the pack with the ball running away from everybody. He gets to LSU. He's the best freshman wide receiver in the country. The last 6 games of the season, it's not even close. He looks like maybe the best wide receiver in the country at that point. His sophomore pace that he started on, he was scoring every 4th time he touched the football on a terrible team, a horribly coached team, a horrible team inside the locker room, a team that was dealing with turmoil every single day, every single week. Kayshon was the bright and shining light every single Saturday that we looked forward to, because when he touched it, good things happened. And everybody in the building knew where the ball was going, right? Like every defensive coordinator was putting all of their pressure on Kayshon to try and take him out of the game. Before he got hurt against Kentucky, he was the best, maybe the best player in the country last season up to that point. If he wasn't, he was in the discussion of it. So my point is, every year he's played sports. Every year he's competed. Every year he's played football. He has been the most dominant player on the field at every level he has played. All of that data says that. One outlying year coming off of an injury where he had 2 surgeries on his ankle as a wide receiver. I'm not making excuses for him, but has seen enough to give him a grace period to say, look, that's not him. And if he can still make that play like he did against Georgia, which is what I have been questioning all season long about him, because that was what was so electric about him the first 2 years in college football. He'd catch a slant route, he'd catch a crossing route, he'd catch an out route, and he'd turn it into 60 yards. I mean, he was running away from people where it made him look like he was just better than everybody. And this part of, this year, you didn't see that. You just didn't see him making that play where he just looked dominant to everyone. And then he did it on Saturday. Like I don't know if that was a time machine. I don't know if that was just playing on the carpet. I don't know if he was just juiced and amped, but he did it. And he did it against the best defense in college football. And he ran 65 yards on them like they were standing still. And if he can still do that, and he's still got that ability with 1 year checked in, my dude's checked in, right? I mean, like that post on Instagram, he's not sitting out of the bowl.
He said, I'm locked in.
He's not sitting out of the off season. So if he stays healthy, and I hope to God he stays healthy.
Purdue about to get this work.
Not even Purdue. Next college football season, I think, is in big trouble with Kayshon, because last year, think about it, he had no offseason. He had no spring. He got thrust into it in fall camp, and he looked like him at times, but he never caught his legs, it felt like, this season. He takes a crossing route, a dig route against Georgia in the SEC title game, 60, and looked very old school Kayshon. If that's who he is going into the offseason, and an offseason of training with Flint and the nutritionist and working with the quarterbacks, man, I mean, come on, man. I mean, the majority of his life, he's been the best player on the field. 1 year after 2 surgeries on his ankle, it caught him a little time, took him a little time to catch up, but at the end of the year, he's making plays like that, where he's high-stepping through Georgia's defense. I mean,
untouched.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Like,
it was art.
Yeah.
It was art. It was art. I mean, it was
porn. More porn art.
Yes.
You know when you see it.
I mean,
porn
is art.
Yes. Especially
Follow me.
At 7.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it just, the catch, I mean, the way he kind of like caught it, it did kind of get pinned up against his visor, but I mean, like the way he just kind of like transitioned, running to the sideline to get up the field. And like Georgia's defense
it's like he hit that.
Is a conversion on him,
gear.
and like it is just, man.
He hit that extra gear that we ain't seen in a while.
In a minute.
Let me get in that left lane.
Like that looks very UCLA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
put
like
that foot in the ground
Ole Miss
and
his freshman year. Like, I mean, just
we ain't gonna catch him.
wow, he's different. You know, I mean, if he's that dude, and now you got Shelton Sampson coming into that room. Now you got man, and I don't mean to. Help me out,
Parker?
Chat. Parker from Texas.
Kyle
Parker,
Parker.
is a dog. Is a dog.
Kayshon just
Coming.
ate
I mean,
up
Kai
so much
Prean.
ground in no time at all.
Kai Preon is a player.
They have 4.
Jalen Brown from Miami. And then
4
you've got
dogs.
the guys in that room already.
Not even mentioning Malik.
Yeah, and talking about what about Brian Thomas? I would think that if there was a breakout player, if you're asking me for a breakout player next year, one of my first names would be Brian Thomas. Like, I would think that if Kayshon leaves, he would be wide receiver 1. I don't even know if Kayshon coming back, if he's still not wide receiver 1 next year.
Do you think that they promised Kayshon maybe a little different?
I don't think you can promise anybody in that room anything.
No, I'm saying, like, because Stewie and I were talking about this before we did the watch party a couple of weeks ago. It's like they kind of moved him to the slot. I don't know if he's totally comfortable there. Yeah. So I don't know if he's coming back to be able to say, look, put me outside again. He's obviously bought in. Whatever the coach is going to like ask him to do, he's going to do. But I wonder if they have more of a plan.
I think you can use him like Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
I think you can move him all over the place. I really do. I mean, especially with LSU's what they put out there. You cannot you can't double anybody.
Hell no.
So I mean, you can use him almost as like the, you know, like kind of like the trinket. Yeah, you know, I mean, like the toy, you know, where you can create these matchups like who's the worst defender out there. Okay, let's isolate Kayshon and put him on him because all this attention is going to be on Malik Neighbors, going to be on Brian Thomas. I mean,
Mason Taylor's going to get a little respect next year.
Absolutely, Mason Taylor will have respect next season. What if John Emery comes back?
Oh, Jesus. Get ready. Get ready.
I mean, what if Chris Hilton's ready to bust out?
Finally healthy.
Coach, this receiver room is...
You know, I mean, the more you talk it out, the more was stuff that... And look, I know that the message boards were going wild last week on Jack Besh.
Oh, God.
You know, on the transfer portal stuff. And
just let him get to St. Patrick's Day. He'll be happy.
I would be shocked if that was true. But the more you talk it out, you throw these names up there. You know, I mean, like, they're all... I mean, you know, like, you take 4, I'll take 4, you take 4, you take the other 4, and we're all winning. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best wide receiver room in the country, huh?
Gotta be.
I mean, besides Ohio State.
But, I mean, next year.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State has a couple guys coming back. But besides Ohio State.
But they lose Harrison and Njigba, right?
Harrison's
a sophomore.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And they have
I didn't talk to his daddy.
And they have the number 1 receiver coming in, Brandon Ennis.
You know, Shelton Sampson, coach, turn on his playoff tape.
Coach,
he took games over. I mean, like, to take a game over at a wide receiver, that's when you know somebody is just
good.
Special.
No, special, man. Like I mean, yes, throw it up. I mean, he's pointing. Like, just throw it up. They got 3 on you. Throw it up.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm about to show you I'm better than everybody here.
Malik against Georgia. Got 2 on you, coach. Throw it up.
And that's what's going to be my next point, or next question for you, I guess is a better way to put it, is what is LSU going to do in the quarterback room? Because I feel like, especially going to the bowl game, Kayshon's probably playing in the bowl, healthy, coming back. No reason he wouldn't. Jaden, a dog, wants to play, but it feels like what's best for him is to not play in the bowl game. Then you give Nussmeier another shot. And if it looks like it did in the second half of Georgia, where he threw for the second most yards in a half of football in LSU history,
and there's yards to be had against Purdue.
Oh,
they are.
I'm catching some.
They could look like video game.
They're
out
watching
there.
that Georgia tape.
I mean, if Nussmeier if he looks like he did in the second half, I mean, it'll be like Madden.